Welcome to the second annual Fatherhood Unity Month, where we bring you dads from all over the country sharing their fatherhood stories and bringing solutions as fathers continue to advance to the head, to the growth, and to the world, and understanding how important we really are. And so today's guest is my friend Kevin Fischer. He is the executive director of NAMI. And listen, Kev, in this in this production, we are we are just as free. We don't have no scripts, right? We get into the conversation, right? Fatherhood story, everything. And so welcome, man.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, man. It's a pleasure to be among good brothers.
Yeah, anytime we can do some good. It's always,
Exactly.
yes, sir. So really, a lot of people don't know who Kevin Fisher is, right? They don't know how dynamic, how good of a person, good man, leadership, all of that. And so, share with them, who is Kevin Fisher.
So, I don't know how dynamic he is, but Kevin Fisher is just a brother from Highland Park. I grew up in Highland Park. Family's been there for 56 years. And I my life, as many of our lives do, has taken an unexpected turn. One that has been impacted by tragedy, again, something that we all experience, but something that a blessing came out of. And so I feel I'm a very blessed man to be where I am, despite, as my pastor would say, maybe coming up the rough side of the mountain.
Yeah.
And um, and so I want to talk about that because we all come we all come with our life experiences, our lived experiences, and good, bad, or indifferent, those lived experiences make us who we are. So while I've faced some difficulties, I wouldn't change a thing. Well, I stopped short of that. There's one thing I would change, and we'll get into that conversation. But all of those experiences make me who I am, and I try every day to be a good man, a good father, a good husband, a good sibling, a good son to my mother. And I think if we all do that, this world will frankly be a better place.
Amen. I Yeah, amen. There's no question about it. I tell my kids, my brother is really big on this, right? And I tell my kids the same. You have to treat people good.
Yep.
You have to be kind to people. You got to understand people because your life, what you come from, is different, and your life offers you a different path, and people will be drawn to you simply because of your where you come from, who you are. And so for me, coming from a line of pastors and preachers and deacons and right, people were automatically drawn to me. I come with a certain ingredient. They have the same ingredients, so it's important that we treat people kindly.
Yeah. Well, we have these sayings that we grew up in the street. One of them is game recognized game.
Yes, sir.
Well, my father always told me good work recognize good. Good people will recognize good people. Good people have a way of finding other good people. And we have to recognize that as a strength, not a weakness. One of the conversations that have come up in my life in recent weeks is a family member, a young man who I have deep respect for, described himself as being a real N word. And we're not going to use the N word on your show, but
Yeah,
we know
yeah,
what
we
we're
don't use
talking
the
about.
N word nowhere, brother.
Yeah. But my response to him is the world doesn't need more real N words. The world needs more real men. The world needs more real fathers. The world needs more real mentors, and role models. And that's what we should be real about. Um, and again, That's not weak. Unfortunately, in our culture, and one of the things I love about you, and I'll go back to good recognize good. The first time me and you met, it just clicked. Good recognize good.
Yes, sir.
And so, we have real conversations and we need to. Being a good man, being a good father, being a good spouse, that's not weak. That's strength.
Yeah.
We have denied ourselves. We brought into this fantasy that being a real inward or being real on the street shows strength. No, being a good husband, father, spouse, son, that is strength, man. And
It takes
and yeah, and it takes that. But the thing is, and you and I know this, there's so many benefits to it. Back to what you were just saying earlier. Um, Being a good person, treating somebody the way we want to be treated, I am telling you, I am a living witness that that has paid dividends for me. I could be a much less pleasant person. I could be a much more difficult person. I could be a harder person and all of that. But God has blessed me with more grace because I have been good to other people. And the people who I can't be on the same page with, and this is a new term my wife just taught me. She tells me that I have a way of being dismissive. And when she said it to me, I was like, man, is that supposed to hurt my feelings? I own that.
Right.
I said, I will absolutely own that because I am dismissive of mess in my life. I am dismissive of interruptive things in my life. I am trying to live a good life. I'm trying to be a good man. I'm trying to be a good role model. I am trying to be good to my family. My legacy, I hope, is that my children remember me the way I remember my father. And I lost my father when I was 15 years old. And he's still one of the best men I ever met because he taught me to be a good man. He taught me to look out for my mother. He taught me to be respectful to women. He taught me that I could do anything I wanted to do as long as I was willing to put the work in to get it done.
And that's facts. That's
Yeah.
fact. Nothing is going to change if you don't change it. Nothing is going to shift if you don't shift it. It's going to always be there. And what you were saying about that whole process of understanding, right? We still, to this day, in our mentoring program, you cannot use the N word in our mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot shape human culture and life by way of that. I,
Mm-hmm.
I will not participate in it. I'm not going to participate in it. And so that very thing that you were saying and how important it is to understand that it takes this much work to have a successful family, to be a good father, all of that. So yeah, that's awesome. So tell us your fatherhood story.
So here's my fatherhood story. First of all, I mentioned before, I lost my dad when I was 15. And I remember having a conversation. I was next to the baby of 8 children. And when I was about 13, 14 years old, I was having a conversation with my dad and I was telling him I wanted to be a father. I wanted to be a father because he was a good father. And I remember him saying, boy, you 14 going on 40. He was like, you need to slow down. Just slow down. All that stuff's going to come. So at 22, I became a father for the first time. My son Dominique was born, and that experience, that moment changed my life. The very first time I held my son, it was life changing for me in the most positive way. I'm going to fast forward to 2007. My son is 20 years old. He was a three-sport athlete. Graduated from Detroit Catholic Central High School. Was down at attending John Carroll University, and doing really well. At that time, he was 20. I also had a 17-year-old son that was finishing high school. Unfortunately, when my son came home for Thanksgiving break in 2007, he was not himself. His mom and I had divorced about a year before. She called me up and said, "Hey, I need you to come. Something's wrong with Dominique." We thought that maybe he went off to school, experimented with drugs, had a bad reaction. So we took him down to the hospital to be for a drug evaluation. After a lengthy exam, the doctors came out and said there are no drugs or alcohol in the system, but we're going to put him on a 72-hour psych hold. And for us, that was like hitting a brick wall at 100 miles an hour because we just did not see that coming. He had not exhibited symptoms of mental illness to us. He was initially diagnosed with schizophrenia, which means he hears or sees things that are not there. In his case, it was hearing voices. He thought he was talking to God. God worked for him. He's going to take over the world and make it a better place. And a couple months later, they added the diagnosis of bipolar disorder. One of the things that I quickly learned is I knew nothing about mental illness. I knew nothing about the behavioral health care system. I knew nothing about what his life was going to look like going forward. And unfortunately, we have this image of mental illness as almost like a death sentence. You end up either institutionalized or you end up in Big Mama's back room somewhere, over medicated. You don't know what's going on around you, and basically you're waiting to die. And that's not what mental health care looks like for most people now. Anyway, we went through the treatment process, which is very frustrating when you don't know what you're doing anyway. You feel like you're in quicksand. Seems like the harder you fight, the deeper you sink. But we started making headway. And in early 2010, he was doing so well, he convinced himself he didn't need his medication. He didn't need to go to treatment. He could do it on his own. Long story short, on June 27th of 2010, he quietly excused himself from his mom's kitchen table and went in the basement and hung himself. So at 23 years old, my son is gone. And for me, we all deal with adversity in life and we all have to be resilient. And I lost a father early, and I had, we all face tragedy and struggles in life. And I've always been very resilient. But when I lost my son, I didn't bounce back. And I got to a place very quickly, unfortunately, where I realized I wasn't managing my grief well. I was seeing a grief counselor. I joined support groups for parents who've lost children, and nothing was helping me. And without conscious thought, Calvin, I started planning my own suicide. I told God, I cannot survive this. You pushed me too far and I can't survive it. And so I literally came within hours of taking my own life. And I am a truly blessed man. And I am one of those men, and here I'm going to shatter another myth for us men. Having a strong spouse in your life is huge. Huge. And we need to do a better job of recognizing that, because it ain't cool, it ain't manly to talk about how strong your girl is and how she got your back. Yeah, it is, because my wife saved my life. Like I said, I came within a couple hours of eating a bullet. And when I said that last prayer to God, I said, I can't take my life with my wife here with me, because I plan to take my life at my son's gravesite. And that morning, I normally visit his grave by myself. But that morning, my wife didn't get dressed to go to work. She said, I'm going to spend the day with you. And I said, no, today's going to be a real bad day. And I'd already gotten up, dressed the night before. I had cleaned my gun. A couple months leading up to it, I got my affairs in order, went to the lawyers, got the will done, set aside some things that I wanted my children to have. And I was done. I was out. But my wife said, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, I'm spending the day with you. I'm not going to allow you to be alone. And my wife had no idea that I was experiencing suicidal thoughts. She was just being a good woman, quite frankly. And so we sat out there at my son's gravesite with my Bible and our chairs, and I prayed and cried. And I said, hey, God, I can't do this while she's here, but I can always come back tomorrow. And God said to me, you asked me for help, and I sent you help. So all you got to do is take her hand, and you'll be okay. That was 11 years ago now, Calvin. And I'm going to dispel another myth. Just because you experienced suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts in the past does not mean you are always suicidal. I have not thought about taking my life since then. And I want people to understand the myth that people who die by suicide want to die is a myth. 90% of the people who have survived suicide attempts, including myself, have lived to tell people, I did not want to die. I simply couldn't live with the emotional pain that I was in.
Yep.
So it is not a weakness. It's not taking the easy way out. I never prayed and cried so much in my life. The last 2 or 3 years of my son's life, that's all I did. So it was not weakness. I was not looking for the easy way out. I just couldn't face it anymore. But from that, my wife realized that maybe I could help myself by helping others. So she actually found NAMI for me. She was Googling organizations that dealt with mental illness and mental health. And I joined as a volunteer. 3 years later, I was a volunteer member of the board of directors. We needed a new executive director. I took the job on an interim basis for $1 a month.
Mm.
That was how important NAMI was to me, because NAMI is a tremendous resource for people who either themselves, their family members, or a loved one is experiencing or been diagnosed with mental illness. NAMI is a tremendous resource and provides a tremendous amount of education, support groups, whatever you need at no cost to participants. Now, we don't provide direct care. We don't provide psychiatrists and psychologists, but we connect you to those resources. And most of the time it's through the community mental health system. So it's still at no cost to the participants. So I want that out there. But since that time, the interim has been almost 8 years now. I am a full-time mental health and suicide prevention advocate. And as it relates to me being a father, it has made me a better father. I have learned that there is strength in going to counseling. It's not a weakness. I've learned that being able to sometimes allow myself to be vulnerable and lean on my spouse shows strength, not weakness. Now, the dynamic here is that you have to have a spouse that is strong enough to allow us to show that vulnerability and not emasculate us or not tell us, suck it up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You're supposed to be the protector, provider, and get out there. We call that toxic masculinity. And that is something that all men, but it's specifically us Black men, have been victim of. We think we're not supposed to have feelings. We think that feeling depressed or anxiety or the weight of the world on our shoulder is a weakness. That's real. And if we don't deal with that, the truth is it will deal with us. Keeping all that stuff bottled up inside comes out in destroying our relationships with our spouses and our children and anybody else at work, at church, whatever the case may be. But it also shows itself in physical manifestation too. If you don't deal with these traumatic experiences that you've experienced, then it has a way of coming back in terms of hypertension, stroke, heart disease. There are lots of other ways that this is slowly killing us that do not equal suicide. So that is the beginning, I guess I'll say, of my fatherhood story. And I will say this, overall, being a father has been one of the most tremendous blessings in my life. Even though I lost a son, I am very blessed because I valued spending time with my children growing up. I coached Little League, I coached AAU. I did all those things, not because I was trying to make professional athletes, because I wanted to spend time with my children, because I wanted to have an opportunity to build a relationship and build a bond that would last a lifetime. And I'll tell you this, and then I'll let you talk because I talk a lot. One of my fondest memories was about a year before my son passed. We were commuting from Grand Rapids. I was a toy buyer at Meyer, and we're commuting back here to the Detroit area. And a Disney World commercial came on the radio, and they talked about going to Disney World is for many a once in a lifetime experience, because we all know how expensive it is to go to Disney World. And my son looked over at me, and keep in mind, he's 22 years old at the time. And he looked over at me and he said, "Dad, it's a once in a lifetime experience for most, but you took me every year of my life." And that's not to speak to financial wealth. That spoke to a bond that we had. We went to Disney World because, again, my children were athletes, and we would go down there and play baseball tournaments and AAU tournaments and that kind of thing. But that was his way of telling me he had a good life. And later in that conversation, I don't remember what came on the radio, but something about suicide came on. And keep in mind, I knew nothing then that I know now. But I remember asking my son directly, I said, "Have you ever had suicidal thoughts?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "But I would never hurt myself." And when I asked him why, he said, "Because I know no matter how much trouble I'm in, no matter where I am in the world, my father will come for me." He said, "Because you show up even when I don't want you to." And what he meant was he trusted me with his life. And having lost him, it's tough, because I struggle literally every day with, if the voices in your head told you to take your life for whatever reason, and I won't have that answer in this lifetime, I said, then why? And if you told me that you knew I would come for you, why didn't you just pick up the phone and call me? Because I would have been there. But the other piece of that, again, was my son letting me know that he had a good life, um, and that we both believed that our bond was stronger than anything. I always believe when my kids played football, their mom would get excited when, you know how moms are when they think your son is hurt. I would just be sitting there and she would say, "Well, why don't you go check on?" I said, "I'll know when my son is hurt, because I'll feel it too." And that was the kind of bond we felt we had. And so the day that I lost him was terribly traumatic, because I thought I would know when he was in trouble, and I didn't.
So amazing that you're even having this conversation, right? And how we talk about uh, the process of suicide and where we are, right? And
Yep.
we put up another billboard, right, to do our Smash Suicide campaign. And right, that whole process where you were talking about being the advocate, right, understanding. I'm going on the record. Anything it is I need to be trained in, I want. One, because I don't want to come from an arrogant place just because I haven't lost a kid in 36 years.
Mm-hmm.
I have not lost a kid in 36 years with the method of the way of mentoring, our whole Emmy way, the whole nine. So this is just a way to work in the prevention, what we do, so it doesn't hit the table. It's not something that a kid has to take in. Here we are to do this process, our whole Smash Suicide. And when we say Smash Suicide, we label the 36 years of work of being involved in prison and prevention work, and making sure that we're engaging, empowering, and encouraging our kids and our youth through the trauma area, because boys 5 to 11 are number one. And this is why our mentoring is so important, and why we kicked off a capital campaign to build our own empowerment center to raise $5 million so we can take a boy from 3 to 24, right? Because it's never been done. In
Mm-hmm.
1940, in the area that we're in 1940, they tried to put together the very same construct when we did the research, right? That we were putting something together for boys in 1940 that literally we discovered while doing the research for the area, right? And here we are, 2021, and I'm telling you right now, I'm raising the bar, Kev. I'm singing. I'm doing everything I can to raise the level of popularity of Calvin Man, so I can tell them we're doing a capital campaign. Put it in there, because once we get that 3 to 5 million, 3 to build, 5 to sustain. Once we get that done, now we can move the same boys that we're pulling from 4 counties, we can help prevent them even more so,
Yep.
right? So we can continue to smash suicide the Emmy way, right? But getting further into that in what you do, tell us all about NAMI, because so many people don't know about your services. They don't know how what you guys bring to the table. And I think it's important that we share that information as you spoke of earlier.
So NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We are the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization that is purely dedicated to building better lives for anyone, the millions of Americans that are affected by mental illness, not just people who live with a diagnosis, but for their family members, caregivers, and the community at large, because we said 1 in 5, but now post-COVID pandemic, we're back to 1 in 4. So about 25% of the US population will experience a mental health crisis in a given year. That's over 60 million people. And we don't talk about it because of this little nasty word we call stigma that we'll get into. And stigma is the mark of shame. Stigma is making people feel like they're weak, that mental illness was a choice, when the fact is mental illness is a medical diagnosis, and mental illness and suicide do not discriminate. Does not care if you're white, black, gay, straight, rich, poor, Republican, Democrat, urban, suburban,
Tall,
rural. Say tall, you good looking,
yeah,
don't matter.
doesn't matter.
Does not matter at all. But here's the thing, and you hit on it. So I know you've been dipping into some of my information, because you hit on it when you talked about the 5 to 11-year-olds. Since what I've learned is stigma affects everybody. It affects every community and culture, but it does vary by community and culture, and particularly in the African American culture, and we can throw in Latino and Muslim culture. Um, on average, only about 43% of the people who live with a mental health issue each year will get help. If you're African American, Latino, or Muslim, you can cut that number in half, because our stigma is different than the general population. And unfortunately, we got to take responsibility for stigma or myths in our own community. And what I mean by that is, we think that having a mental health diagnosis, like I said, is a weakness. We don't want our friends, neighbors, people we sit next to on the pew at church to know. We're killing ourselves, and we're robbing ourselves of a quality of life. And this is not us versus them. Unfortunately, there's still a strong belief in the African American community that mental illness and suicide is a white people problem. That's an everybody problem. You just spoke to it a couple minutes ago. Since 2018, for the first time, we've been tracking statistics at the Centers for Disease Control. They started reporting that the suicide rate for African American boys in particular, between the ages of 5 and 12, is double what it is for white kids. So this ain't a them problem. Since 1999, the rate of suicide has increased by 35% from 1999 to 2017. In the African American community, specifically teenagers, the suicide attempts have increased during that same period of time by 74%. So for those of us who think our high school, junior high school age, and elementary school kids aren't thinking about suicide, think again. And then for us men, in the total population, 75% of all suicides are completed by men. But in the African American community, it's 82%. So us men are taking our lives at a greater rate than the rest of the general population. Now, let's not let the numbers get us twisted, because even though men die by suicide at a 3 to 4 to 1 rate than women, women attempt suicide 10 times more often than men do, but they tend to use less lethal methods. Men die by hanging, or firearms. Women still take pills, drug overdoses, cut their wrists, that kind of thing. And so they have a greater opportunity to survive. But this suicide and mental illness thing is real in the Black community, and we have to get our head out the sand and stop pretending that it only affect white folks, because it don't.
That's the big dynamic, right?
Yep.
That's the thing I deal with, right? You and I, we deal with this. I don't know if you deal with it the way I deal with it, but here's a scenario I have to deal with running the organizations I run. White people call me a Black organization, and Black people say you too friendly with white folk, right? And the ignorance of them both make you, just pisses you all the way off,
Yep.
because as you're painting the picture about suicide, right? You're saying, when we discovered, I think I told you a story, we were doing Respect Day, and
Mm-hmm.
it popped up on the computer, and we discovered boys 5 to 11 were number one.
Mm-hmm.
We got further in, I was already talking about suicide since 2014 with men, right? Because men sow poor decisions and things. So now they reap. Reaping what we've sown toward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's even into our families, across our families, right? But when we get deeper into it, the 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 billboard we put up today was in last month was 48204.
Okay.
So the zip code 48204 is pretty high
Mm-hmm.
with suicide,
Yep.
right? So how do we, and I've been saying this on a bunch of phone calls, how do we come together and begin to spread these billboards, right? And raise the awareness even more so, Kev, because I truly believe visual, the more this visual is up, that's why I use the characters from my children's book, man, right? I
Mm-hmm.
need you to understand, and I need us to really understand, all of us, 63% of all suicides come from fatherless homes.
Yep.
So the fact that I'm not even in the house, I walk away, I have to experience this same, and we'll chalk it up as um, Tommy. Yeah, Tommy got killed. Yeah, but Tommy really killed himself. He
Yeah.
just gave 82%,
Yep.
right? 82%, right? And then across the board, 5 to 80, it's males.
Yep.
And we're abandoning
Well, you,
children, we're abandoning our families. It's males that's executing the suicide. But go ahead.
well, no, you know what? Let's go back to what you talked about. 63% of all suicides come from children from fatherless homes. Why? You and I know, and this is something that is very near and dear, I know, to both of our houses. I mean, our hearts. Man, being a father is one of the greatest blessings God bestowed upon me. You talk about, I don't do drugs, I don't drink, I don't do anything. My greatest high is watching my kids flourish, man. Um, like I said, I spent so much time with my kids because I wanted to have that relationship. I didn't want them to be able to say my father wasn't around. My father didn't play with us. My father, he worked all the time, but he was never here. I wanted to spend quality time with my kids. I got out in the back. I didn't know anything about baseball. When my son came home, when he was 10 years old, and said, "Hey, Dad, guy in the neighborhood starting a baseball team." I'm basketball, football, and this was back in the late 90s, before I had Google and all that. So I
Yeah.
went to the local library, man, rented some VHS videotapes, got some books, learned about, because my son didn't just want to play baseball; he wanted to be a pitcher. And I knew nothing about pitching because I couldn't hit a fastball growing up to save my soul. We played softball, not fast pitch, hardball. And I would come home from work. Matter of fact, my son would call. If I went home by 6 o'clock, my son would call me, "Where you at?" Be standing in the garage with the ball, bat, and glove when I pulled in. I was like, "Man, can I go take my suit off before we get out here? I got bad knees and all of that," but I didn't complain because the deal I made with my sons is that if you're willing to put in the effort, I will never turn you away.
That's right.
But it's all of that. So I get really frustrated, and I'm a grandfather now too, which is beyond. I thought being a father was cool.
I'm about to be a granddaddy for the first
Man, let me tell you, can't wait to welcome you to the club. Being a grandfather, it has my grandson is 18 months old. I've got a 6-month-old granddaughter I haven't even met in person yet due to COVID because she way down in Ohio. But my grandson alone far exceeded my expectations already of being a grandfather, man. And I say all that because I want other fathers who see this to understand what a joy, what a value it is, man. Be a part of your kid's life. Don't let, if you got a bad relationship with your wife, ex-wife, baby mama, whatever your relationship is like, you find a way to stay in that child's life. Because you will reap benefits you've not thought of. Don't just wait to see if he's going to be the next LeBron. Get down on the floor and play with your kids now, because it is overwhelming to me what a joy that has been. And again, this is coming from a father who lost a son. And I never thought I would have to draw on these memories as a source of peace. But knowing that I spent that time with my kids, having lost one, really brings me a sense of peace, because I was there, and nobody can take that away from me. Nobody can say I didn't read to my kids when they were young. Nobody can say I didn't walk with them, sing to them, all of that stuff. Don't cheat yourself out of that. If you're a father, don't cheat yourself, and don't let anybody else cheat you out of that.
Great point. I think I don't know. Have you heard about the Dr. Jacques Peugeot study about fathers and play and the cognitive health of how important it is for kids to play with their fathers and right? And Dr. Jacques Peugeot mic'd up a rat cage with the male father, and they heard the rats laughing. The importance of fatherhood and play is such a cognitive induced um, how do you put it? It's very valuable that
Mm-hmm.
we play with our children, and trauma and drama literally takes that away
Yep.
from right. Um, Not being able to see your kid falsely accusing you, right? There's so many. I get so many calls of so many men falsely accused in the prison, in the court system of touching their kid, all
Mm-hmm.
man. And what happens is so it is not good, because here's someone who really could be touched by a male, and we miss it. As a matter of fact, the young man I mentored, it was a huge story, became a father.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, they were over there on Telegraph, and he had got custody of the child and was just sympathetic to the mom. Took the child to the mom. Next thing you know, the child is dead.
Mm-hmm.
They pick him up. They take him to jail. They put
Mm-hmm.
him in court. He on TV crying. I would never harm my child,
Yep.
right? When everyone told him to stay away.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so blessed for them to do their work and get out and get free from that scenario for a life.
Yeah.
It's so much of that that has to stop. Then it's harming, right? And as I was telling them the other day, at a 30% clip, Kev, we're not succeeding with our children at 70%.
Yeah.
We're not.
Yeah.
Our children are not succeeding at a 72% clip or 75% clip. 75% of your culture and your race is succeeding academically, nurture wise, community wise. We're not. We're at 30. So nobody can settle and be happy where Black children are, right? And in America, our family structure has been decimated, right? And so even the hate mongers and the individuals and the Rainbow Coalition, no one can be happy where
Nope.
our children are in this country. So I wanted to make sure I got that off my chest. My request, Kev, this is where we are. And again, uh, what a great story, a great person. I can't wait. I know, did you write the book yet, or when you write
No,
the
man,
book?
I'm still I'm still slow on writing the book. But and in part because I can't sit still long enough. I had a friend, actually a psychiatrist friend, send me a note earlier today about a new commission that the governor is establishing on equity and in youth, as a matter of fact. I have to share that with you. And she sent it, and I said, you know what? I think I'm maxed out on governor commissions. I sit on too many, and I got my fingers in so many other things. I can't sit still long enough to write a book. I said I was going to hire somebody to write it for me, just let me dictate it. But to your point, and I want to go back, I can't stress this enough. Us men cannot allow anybody to keep us from being a positive role in the lives of our children. We
That's
brought these children here, and 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 you know what, Calvin? It's not just do it for them, because I'm very open about my selfishness too. I get as much out of it as I give. To see my grandson now walk around here, man. Um, when I'm having the worst day, the pure sight of him changes everything for me. Changes everything. My day instantly gets better when I see him. Even if it's just my daughter sending me a picture of him doing nothing. Um, we we can't allow society to convince us that we can't play a greater positive role in the lives of our children. We have to. I'm one of those people who believe you control what you can control. And this is something we can control. First of all, we determine when we go out here and make babies. Um, and whether it is planned or not, once we find out we bring in a child into the world, we can decide what role and what impact we're going to have in those children's lives. And as easy as it is for us to decide not to, or sometimes for mom to not allow us to play a role, we can say, you know what, this is worth fighting for. If I have to go to court and fight for custody or visitation rights for my child, I'm going to do that. I hope it doesn't come to that, but do that. And the other thing I want us to understand is being a good father is not determined by whether or not we can purchase our kids the latest pair of Jordans and all of that. Being a provider is important, but it doesn't, kids don't know what brand shoes you put on their foot.
no, no,
You,
no, no.
you the one that did that.
Right.
You take care of your kids. You do the best you can with what you have, because that's what your child's going to remember. Your child is going to remember. I was never called. Here's what my father had a sixth grade education, came up from Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm sorry, no, he was born in Texarkana, Texas, came up from Little Rock, Arkansas. Um, I made more money when I was working part-time in college than my father made in the factory. That wasn't the issue, though. I'm one of 8 kids. I was never hungry. I was never cold. I never lived in a dirty house. My parents didn't make a lot of money, but my father took care, and my mother, because my mother helped. I'm not going to rob, because I believe in having strong, good women in your life. My mother and father together provided the best life they could for us. So I got nothing to complain about. And we shopped at Kmart, Kresge's, the whole nine as kids. So
Come on. So you're already into it. Give us 3 solutions that men, families, people, whatever it is you want to share, but 3 solutions that can impact the community, impact homes. It's your time.
my first is this: make the decision that you want to be a good father. That's the beginning. You have to be intentional about that. Then I would say set the best example that you can. Um, let's not teach our young men, as we said, and I'm getting old. Back, what was the saying back in the 70s and 80s? Live fast, die young, make a good-looking corpse. That's just stupid. Okay, I'm just gonna call it what it is. That's just stupid.
Right.
There's value in longevity. I want to live a long life because I want to have the most positive impact I can in the lives of not only my children and families, but in the community as a whole. You have to want to do that. So be a good role model for your children. And I came across a something on social media recently that said it was a picture of a man. He was a janitor, and they said it doesn't matter how a man makes a living or earns a dollar, as long as he's being a good father and provider to his family. Nobody cares. Your children won't care. My father worked in a factory. Like I said, my father had a sixth grade education. Um, my father's been gone for 42 years, Calvin, and I respect him more now than I did the day he died. And I had huge respect for him then, because now as a father becoming a grandfather, I more and more value what he was willing to do to take care of his family. And I want to do that for mine as well. Um, the third thing that I would say is walk with God, man. You know, you gotta have that faith. Um, like I said, I came within hours of taking my life, Calvin. That was real. I can never forget that. And I told you early on when my son passed, and I remember this so vividly. Um, the week between the time he passed and the time we had his funeral was so surreal to me. I learned what it means to be in a state of shock, because none of that time was real. During that week, Calvin, it may sound, and I don't like using this word often, it may sound crazy. During that week, I still thought there was a chance that my son was going to come home.
Yep.
It wasn't until at the end of his funeral when the funeral director said, "Kevin, I need you to step out so we can get him ready." And what he meant was, because my son was an athlete, his mom and my mother wanted us to have like basketball, baseball, football that his friends could sign, and they put in the casket with him. And so they were going to lower him and close the casket for the last time. And it was at that moment, Calvin, that I realized this is for real. This
Yeah.
is over.
This is it.
This is it. This is over.
Yeah.
And as sure as I'm talking to you right now, I've always had a mantra in my life that I bend, I don't break. And when I lost my father, I bent. But I've always had my dad in my head just saying, just keep moving, you'll be fine.
Yep.
You know, when I faced other adversity in life, I bent, I didn't break. When they closed that casket for the last time, my spirit broke. And I remember standing there telling God, you went too far. You know, we always say God never gives you more than you can bear. And I remember saying, you went too far and I will not survive this. And I'm still here. And I'm here because of faith. I'm here because God said, I have a plan for you. And I'm living that plan. Everything that I've done since my son passed, everything I do as a mental health and suicide advocate is because God put this in me. I didn't choose this path. God chose this for me. So my number 3 is hold on to that faith, man, because that faith is something else. That faith is something else.
You better praise God in everything.
Yep.
You better give thanks when you see a number on your check, when
Yep.
you see daylight, when you see someone value, right? You have to understand that good fatherhood is a collection of good decisions, but your main decision is to have that relationship with God. However you want to do it, it's on you.
Yep.
Yeah, you can call him whatever you want to call him, but you
Yep.
better have that relationship with God. I always say this, and my brother, everybody like to correct you. I say, but God showed up in so many places. Man
Yep.
created religion. We started
Yep.
putting different names to him, you know,
Yep.
and saying, but there's no way. I'm not here. I'm not on this call. I'm not doing this interview. You see my life from 2004. It's all
Mhm.
God.
Yep.
It's all God. It is all God. There is nothing you see before you that is me that God doesn't have his hands on. And you are absolutely right. It is very important that you have that faith and you be grounded. So those like Dr. Miles Monroe say, hey, for those of you who don't believe in God, that's okay. He's been good to me.
Yep.
You know what
Yep.
I mean?
Absolutely.
He's been good to me. So
Like you, I'm not here if it's not for God. And I tell people all the time, I don't take credit for anything that I've accomplished. God brought me here. As a matter of fact, when you talk about grace and mercy, and again, my life I've always valued that. I mean, I've always valued my relationship with God. When I was a kid, I used to tell people, God, people say, how you do that? Or how, I was like, God likes me. And people in church will correct me and say, well, God loves us all. I said, no, that's not what I said. God likes me. I don't know why he keeps showing me favor, but he does. Now, fast forward, like I said, to the last 11 years of my life. And it has increased immensely because I couldn't be here, Calvin. I couldn't do the things that I do. People ask me every day, including today. Somebody on an email said, how many jobs do you have? How do you keep doing what you're doing? This is all God. This ain't me. God brought me here. I'm just trying to live up to it. That's it.
uh brother, and they will ask that question like, where you get this energy from?
Yep.
Doing too much.
Yep.
What is this all about? Hey, listen, I ain't got you talking to somebody that's got stuff with purpose. I
Yep.
ain't got no choice. And the fact, and this is true, I'm about to release another song.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna keep releasing track, right? Because I sat on them and denied what God had in me for years. And I went through all these places, man.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I turned around, right, it was denial. Uh, no, you don't know what you're doing, right? And I'm like, my music is pretty good. I'm like, wait a minute. And then it was like, back to the strong woman.
Yeah.
God gave you sitting on that?
Yep.
I said, yeah. She was like, God ain't giving me, you better let that go. I said, babe, she said, you better let that fly.
Yep.
You can't sit. God gave you that gift and you're not. And so we have a tendency to make materialism, uh, money has become some people's God. And
Mm-hmm.
the other day, David Pate said, and then we'll close. David Pate said the one thing, it was a nice little clip. He said the one thing that really upsets him about brothers is, about men, is when they can't provide as the head provider,
Mm-hmm.
that they decide that they just don't want to be involved. And back to what you were saying, you provided time, you provided security, you provided care, you provided skill, you provide touch, you provide knowledge, you
Mm-hmm.
provide you provide life.
Yep.
0 to 9%, 0 to the age of 9. I
Yep.
I really run with this. If you were in your child from 0 to 9, they live longer. No one else can boast that. So if
Yep.
you're not really walking into your superheroes, God the Father, you're named after the Most High,
Yep.
our Father, God the Father, Father figure. He made sure you had all of this to come with, and man has done all they could to keep you away. And look at our children.
To undo it. Well, and again, to your point, um, material things have gotten in the way. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have nice things. I'm not saying you should not be a good provider. As a matter of fact, I'm saying the opposite. But Calvin, those things, this sounds a little cliche. It's taking care of itself. I like nice things. I don't worship nice things. Money is a tool to me. Again, it sounds a little cliche.
Oh no, that's
And
real. That's what it is.
yeah, but money is like a hammer to me. Money is a tool. I utilize it to be able to do certain things, but it has never been my focus. My investing my time, talent, energy into my children, that has always been my focus. Money just came along. Um, we can do so much better, and it starts with just wanting to do better. You know, for me, again, when you have faith, which is the basis for me for everything, but after that, you just have to, you need the desire to say, I'm going to be a good father. That's it.
That's it. And get on thegoodfathersonly.com and go through them 20 pages of merchandise and get you something to say good dad or good father or good grandfather, and go out here and represent and change. Kevin Fischer, thank you. Tell everybody where they can find you. And listen, and yes, I most definitely want to be involved in that youth commission if it's any way possible. I talked to Washington, D.C. the other day also about their black male commission. So I'm very interested because I think we have a nice solution at the table.
I will forward you that information. You can find me at NAMI.michigan.org. So it's NAMI.org, or you can call my office at 517-485-4049. And brother, thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to support you in your ministry, whether it's Envy Me or and Good Fathers Only, because we need more of this. I wish my computer hadn't died, because I had one graphic that I want to share with the brothers out here that just says, hugs, brother. You know, we need to take care of ourselves, and we need to come together and do that. So thank you, my brother, for all you do.
Hey, man, again, I'll be calling you because I want to collaborate. We got to get some more billboards out here. We got to get some more images for families to understand how crazy the suicide thing is and how we hold the keys to making a difference. So, Kevin Fischer, I truly appreciate you, man. Love you. Keep banging it. Keep doing your great things, man. And God bless you and your family, man. I appreciate you.
God bless you too, brother.
All right. Have a blessed one, brother.
You too.
How unbelievable.
Man, I appreciate you so much. It's always such a pleasure, and I mean this sincerely, to talk to you, because I love feeding off your energy, man. Today's been a long day, but you just got me hyped up again. So. But that's what good brothers do for good brothers. That's the way that works.
Yes, sir. So I appreciate you, man. I really do. I know, again, it's the way it is right now. We just got to keep making a difference. But I'm raising the bar, Kev. You getting ready to see
I'm with you.
The song Blessings. I'm coming behind that. Where we got the help. And my uncle just blessed me with a whole production crew.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so, like, I'm gonna keep dropping them. And then when I drop the Encourage Me, I'm Young song, I'm gonna keep painting the picture until they bring me that $5 million where we can build this empowerment center. But that's what everything wants to work.
I hear that. Hey, I'm gonna put you on one of my newest ventures. I just got invited to be a co-executive producer on the Mind Matters with Dr. Michelle show.
Okay.
It comes on Saturdays at 11:30 on Channel 20. But what's really cool is not only does it air here in Detroit, but she got picked up about 6 months ago by the Black News Channel. So she's on cable 3 or 4 times a week nationally.